A considerable number of people have indeed raised doubts about U.S. President Donald Trump's recent military action against Iran, as well as the broader issue of control over oil and crude resources. Their concern centers on the fact that the Strait of Hormuz had previously remained open and unobstructed, with global oil prices relatively stable. However, following Trump's decision in the joint operations of U.S. and Israeli forces, the strait has been closed and blockaded, triggering rising oil prices, market instability, and even shocks to the global economy and stock markets. As a result, some have begun to question whether this action was necessary, whether it was a misjudgment, or even a major mistake. However, such views often overlook several key dimensions. First, although Trump is the President of the United States, his power is not unlimited. He does not operate within a system where a single individual can unilaterally determine all outcomes. Major decisions must be shaped by national interests, institutional constraints, and the interplay of multiple forces. Therefore, his decisions fundamentally need to serve and align with the broader national interests of the United States, rather than reflect a single personal will. Second, the issue of Iran is not a recent development, but a structural conflict that has persisted for decades. Its adversarial relationship with the United States, along with its long-standing influence on Middle Eastern dynamics, has been deeply entrenched. Over the past several decades, the U.S. and its allies have generally adopted a strategy of limited pressure combined with relative restraint toward Iran, neither delivering a decisive blow nor fully resolving the issue. This approach resembles a moderated form of containment. However, it has never fundamentally solved the problem, leaving it like a latent time bomb that could trigger a larger-scale conflict at any moment. Third, the reasons behind the joint actions of the United States and Israel also lie in deeper strategic considerations. Accumulated risks are approaching a critical threshold, and shifts in multiple global forces are accelerating this process. For example, the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, the possibility of a military unification of Taiwan by China, and concerns over uranium enrichment and the potential emergence of nuclear weapons. The global landscape is undergoing significant transformation. Europe is under pressure due to war and security concerns, Asia remains tense, and the Middle East is becoming increasingly complex. In this context, interactions among major powers are intensifying, and the risk of confrontation is rising. The strategic alignment among Russia, China, and Iran has become deeply rooted, forming what some perceive as a unified front. Consider the following scenarios. If Ukraine were defeated in the Russia-Ukraine war and Vladimir Putin were to consolidate control over Ukraine, what would happen to the balance of power in Europe? If China were to succeed in a military takeover of Taiwan, gaining control over the Taiwan Strait and the global semiconductor supply, how would the situation in Asia evolve? And if Iran were to successfully develop nuclear weapons, surrounded by historical adversaries, how would the Middle East be reshaped? Now imagine if all three of these developments were to occur within a short time frame, within the same year or overlapping periods. What would the global order look like then? It is precisely under such worst-case scenario projections that some decision-makers believe the situation has reached a stage requiring early intervention and proactive response. If action is delayed, future risks and costs may become significantly higher. Shen Jike Nen Shi Kong. In such a case, a third world war could become inevitable. And if a third world war were to break out, the consequences for ordinary people could be inferred from the devastation witnessed in World War I and World War II. Overall, the conflict surrounding Iran and the Strait of Hormuz does not signify the end of a problem, but rather may mark the beginning of a larger structural transformation. It reflects deeper tensions involving global power structures, energy security, and geopolitical competition. As for how the future will unfold, it will depend on the choices and interactions of all parties involved. What is certain, however, is that this will not be a short-lived process, but rather a prolonged and complex historical phase. The United States, along with Trump, appears intent on reshaping the global landscape of energy, security, and political order. May all lovers in the world grow old together as if in eternal spring. And may there be peace on earth.